talking to you today from Moonraker Headquarters Library in order to introduce this video an audience with the Moonrakers. Now, at tournaments I'm often asked, where is the toilet? But I'm also sometimes asked, what is a Moonraker? And in this video we will try to give you a greater understanding of what it means to be a Moonraker. With tactical hints, modelling ideas, interviews with key personalities, a look around part of Moonraker Headquarters and a section where we answer your questions. So please sit back as we introduce the Moonrakers. Oh, and by the way, if you did tune in to find out where the toilet is, it's through the Great Hall on the right before the ballroom. There is a closer facility behind the scullery, but we tend to reserve that for use by the understairs servants. So thank you, please enjoy the show. Welcome to this Moonraker tactical hint, and in this tactical hint we're going to be looking at the use of nimble. Now, in the situation on the table here, the shadow hounds at the bottom of the screen want to charge the horde of infantry at the top of the screen, but you can see as they go forward they will not be able to get past the 2 units of chaff the defender has put in place to protect his horde, and normally therefore that would not allow the shadow hounds to charge. But, as you know, during a charge a unit has one free pivot of up to 90 degrees about its centre point, and the shadow hounds, being nimble, are allowed to have a second pivot, and in that instance they will be able to complete the charge. And this is how they do it. They start off this position here and do a 90-degree turn about their centre. This enables them to get past the chaff. They can do a second pivot then and then move into contact with the enemy horde, which is their chosen target. And there you can see that that would not have been possible for a unit which does not have the nimble special rule. And so a nimble unit in that circumstance can charge a target they want to, and that could be a battle-winning manoeuvre for you. I hope you've enjoyed that tactical hint. Hello and welcome to Ask the Moonrakers, the section of the show where we answer your questions. But first, I'd like to share some exciting news with you. Results of this year's Moonraker Personality Contest have just been announced and I've reached 4th place. That's a great achievement and I'd like to thank all of you who voted for me. I'll use this result as a springboard for next year when I really hope I'll be able to achieve a podium place. Now, on with your questions. Tony from Titty Hill has a problem with double ones. Sorry, I think that should be double ones. He writes, whenever I play a game I always roll more double ones than my opponent. It's driving me nuts. What can I do? Well Tony, there's a simple answer. Play more games against Rusty Shackelford. He rolls more double ones in a single game than you have hot dinners in a week. And that will soon improve your statistics. Arthur Pendragon from Tintagel says, I've just started a Kingdoms of Men Knight army and I'm looking for a suitable mythic theme to give it some flavour, but I can't think of anything. Can you help? Well, I'm sorry Arthur, nothing springs to mind immediately, but I'll get together with the other Moonrakers for a round table discussion and we'll see what we can come up with. Now, Norman Sidebottom has written in from Little Whinging in the Marsh and says, I've been in the hobby for a couple of years. I spend at least 2 hours each day painting and watch as many battle reports and listen to as many podcasts as possible. Most weekends I play games against my friends and frequently attend tournaments, but I do not seem to be getting any better. What should I do?
Get a life!
Yep, that sounds like pretty good advice, Norman. Try getting a life. Mr. D. King has written in and asks, how can he beat Tom Robinson? Well, at night with a stick while he sleeps is probably the best way, Mr. King. Earlier this week a letter came flooding in from Mrs. Trellis in North Wales, and she asks, when painting detail on models, should I start painting outside and move in, or start inside and move out? I put this question earlier today to our resident modelling expert, Moonraker Andy, and this is his reply. That is a good question. Personally, I start painting outside when it is sunny and move in when it gets cold, but this is really a matter of personal taste. Nick from Neverwallop wants some tactical advice. He writes, can you give me some succinct tactical hints that will improve my game? This question is tailor-made for our resident tactical genius, and I earlier asked Paul to comment. And the fox suggested, fight the shooty stuff and shoot the fighty stuff. Unfortunately, I then read the rest of Nick's letter, which goes on to say, I normally use an all-close combat army with no shooting. Well, Nick, I think we can simply modify the fox's tactical advice to you, and so I suggest that you should fight the shooty stuff and fight the fighty stuff. Well, anyway, good luck with that, and let us know how you get on. Colin from Cockermouth has written in asking how we can improve the look of his dwarf army. Well, Colin, I find there is nothing that improves the look of a dwarf army so much as putting them in a waste bin. It certainly makes them look much better from my perspective. Only kidding, Ronnie. We really love dwarves, honestly. Brian writes from Bell End with a question. This year has seen some new faces rising up the Masters rankings. Is there anything I can learn from these players that might improve my game? Well, Brian, you're right, it is nice to see new faces rising up the rankings, and having examined the reasons for their success, I've identified some key things that you might wish to try. Firstly, drink heavily on the night before the tournament and during the tournament itself. Secondly, colour your hair a different shade for each tournament. Now, if that doesn't work for you, you can always try the tactic of selling the army that you've been using with some success over the last year and try out a new army, and then decide that you would prefer to go back to your original army and go and buy new models to rebuild that. And finally, Gordon from Giggleswick writes with a serious problem. He says, I've played Kings of War for 3 years now using Abyssal Dwarves, but not with any success. But when I returned home from my latest tournament, I found my wife had taken the kids and left me. She has emptied the bank account, leaving me with no money. I am an emotional wreck and have lost my job as a result of my constant depression. Can you help? Well, Gordon, you certainly have a really serious problem, and I think you will have to accept that you will need to make some pretty serious changes in your life going forward. If you have been playing Abyssal Dwarves for 3 years with no success, you will probably find they do not suit your play style. You should consider changing armies. I would normally never suggest that anybody plays an elf army, but you may find better luck with a fast, nimble army. So give it a try and let us know how you get on. Well, I'm afraid that's all we have time for today. Please keep your questions coming in. Thank you very much and goodbye. Well, welcome everybody to our next programme in our series of Meet the Moonrakers. Today we'll be meeting former racing driver and top Kings of War player Paul, who will be joining to give us a glimpse into the life of the enigma known as the Fox. Paul, welcome to the show and thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Good. Now, Paul, I'm sure that many of our viewers will be interested to know how you came by the nickname the Fox. Is it because of your cunning tactics when playing Kings of War, which saw you finish as the runner-up in the 2017 UK Masters, or does the nickname predate your involvement in miniature wargaming and refer to your magic moves on the motor racing circuit?
Neither really, it's just the name.
Oh, right, okay, well, fascinating, thank you. Well, moving on to your success at Kings of War, 3 types of war described as absolute war, instrumental war and agonistic fighting. Now, some people would characterise your war fighting ethos as merging instrumental and agonistic styles rather than absolute warfare, suggesting that you aim to achieve a position of advantage over your enemy rather than simply annihilating them. Now, would you agree with that?
No.
Yes, I see. Well, that's very interesting. Well, now let's move on to discuss your modelling. You've never been afraid to court controversy with your armies, with many people viewing your models like Marmite, either loving the simplicity or hating the outcome. Now, you certainly have a unique and immediately recognisable style. Some people have suggested your modelling combines aspects of naive art with progressive abstraction and fantastical whimsy. Did it take you long to develop this style?
No.
Yes, I see, right. Well, fascinating, interesting. Well, I'm afraid we're out of time now. Paul, thank you for joining us today and sharing some fascinating insights into what makes the Fox tick. Thank you very much, Paul.
My pleasure.
Thank you. And we'll see next week for another interview with a different Moonraker. Good night.
Here comes a cunning tactical hint from the fox.
For best results, don't roll a double one at a critical time in the battle.
That was a cunning tactical hint from the fox.
Welcome to the next Moonraker tactical hint, and this time we're going to show you how to ensure that you never ever lose a game when you're playing the kill scenario. And this is a good example of a tactic which can be used by any army at any points level and at any length of time for the game. Now I'm assuming for this particular game it's 1,995 points and we've got 50 minutes each on the clock. It doesn't matter who goes first or who wins the roll to choose sides. That is unimportant. This tactic will work in every situation. This is a really, really good tactic which will benefit all players. And the tactic starts in the deployment phase. So again, it doesn't matter whether you or your opponent goes first in their deployment phase, but in your first turn in the deployment phase, you set your clock. There we go, and then you do absolutely nothing. And you let your clock run completely down to the end of the deployment phase, at which stage you have no units deployed, you are out of the game, it's then over to your opponent, he has 50 minutes to deploy his units and move them around as much as he wants, but because he cannot kill any of your units, at the end of the game it will be a draw. And that is how you ensure that you never ever lose the kill scenario. I hope you've enjoyed this Moonraker tactical hint. Well, welcome to the Moonraker sweatshop, and we're going to... Oh, really? Okay, sorry, stop, cut. Well, welcome to Moonraker's textile department. And this department was moved upstairs into this room here after the health and safety visit to the previous room in the basement, and they asked us to move it. And as you can see, we've had to ramp up production of betties, particularly to meet the insatiable demand from the Southeast Asian market, which has been really surprising. I'm glad to meet that, but also of course now we're ramping up to meet the new Auto Betty requirement, which we'll be issuing sometime later this year. This is also where, the textile department is also where we make the branded products for the Moonrakers. And you will all notice that following coronavirus we've had to lay off most of the staff, a result of which we've automated production, and this has been a great success. And in fact, I'm pretty sure we won't be taking any of that staff back on again. So let's have a more detailed look at some of the things going on here. Okay, well, here we are then, and you can see that there's some of the textiles, and here's a machine working on the textiles, and then the overlocker here is working on the betties. There's the betties we're getting ready to dispatch for Southeast Asia. Coming round, more textiles here working on the betties again, on the little boxes we have on the top, and then coming round and more textiles over here, and this time you can see we're working on a t-shirt for one of the Moonrakers. So there we are, that's the textile department for you. A quick update on the situation. Shortly after filming the Moonrakers textile department, we stopped work on Moonraker themed items, switched production full-time to Care Workers PPE. We'll restart the Betty production line as soon as the situation allows.
Here comes a cunning tactical hint from the fox.
If you want to win more games, try playing only opponents who are weaker than you.
That was a cunning tactical hint from the fox.
Well, that concludes the audience. I hope you've enjoyed the show, so until next time, may all your dice rolls be double sixes. Goodbye.